Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Alexei Navalny's representatives say his mother and lawyers have been blocked from entering a mortuary where his body could be being kept.
Здесь у меня просто очевидная вещь. Ну, не сдавайтесь. Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы...
Navalny, one of Russia's most significant opposition figures, had been in jail on charges widely viewed as politically motivated. His allies believe he was murdered on the orders of President Vladimir Putin, but prison authorities say he suffered sudden death syndrome. Protests and vigils have been held near Russian embassies in many countries, and hundreds of people have been detained in Russia amid warnings not to rally.
In a mean and cowardly fashion, they are now hiding his body, not showing it to his mother or giving it to her, and pathetically lying and waiting for the traces of more of Putin's Novichok to disappear.
We have to send a message of support to the Russian opposition and to pay an homage to Navalny. And in order to honor his memory, we propose the ministers to rename our human rights sanctions regime with his name and call it the Navalny Human Rights Sanctions Regime, in order for his name to be forever written on the work of the European Union on defending human rights.
Meanwhile, the US and UK ambassadors to Moscow have laid flowers to honour Alexei Navalny, the Russian opposition leader who died in prison on Friday. The US ambassador Lynn Tracy and Britain's Nigel Casey were pictured paying their respects at a memorial in Moscow. Israeli War Cabinet member Benny Gantz has warned that unless Hamas frees all hostages held in Gaza by the 10th of March, an offensive will be launched in Rafah. It is the first time Israel has said when its troops might enter Gaza's overcrowded southern city. Global opposition is growing to such an attack in Rafah, where some 1.5 million Palestinians are sheltering. Earlier, the UN Public Health Agency said a key Gaza hospital had ceased to function following an Israeli raid. A judge in Brazil has fined officials and construction companies $48.3 million over the collapse of a building site in the city of Sao Paulo. 7 people were killed in the accident in 2007 when an enormous sinkhole suddenly opened up, swallowing pedestrians and vehicles. Workers were digging a tunnel to extend the metro system in the Pinheiros neighborhood when the earth gave way. The judge said the collapse was due to negligent and dangerous acts. Huge crowds have rallied in Mexico's capital, protesting against proposed changes to the electoral authority ahead of June's presidential elections. The Mexico City government said some 90,000 people turned out in the city's Zocalo Square. The rally organizers said the figure was much higher. The opposition accuses President Andrés Manuel López Obrador of trying to weaken the National Electoral Institute, an autonomous non-partisan body. He says the INE is biased and corrupt. Since his victory in the 2018 presidential elections, Mr. López Obrador has been pushing for a reform of the INE, which he says will save taxpayers $150 million a year by drastically reducing the agency's staff. 3 young children found dead at a house in Bristol were a boy aged 7, a girl aged 3, and a 10-month-old boy. Police officers discovered the children after responding to a welfare call in Blaze Walk, Sea Mills, at 12:40 a.m. on Sunday. A 42-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Forensic post-mortem examinations are set to take place later this week to establish the causes of death. And tourism spending in China during the Lunar New Year break jumped above pre-COVID levels. That's according to official data. Domestic tourism spending hit 632.7 billion yuan, about 47% more compared to the same holiday period last year, according to government figures. The celebrations came after years of pandemic lockdowns and restrictions which were lifted in early 2023. The data was also boosted as the holiday was a day longer than usual. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.